in school, we learn about all types of different animals. We see them in books, we get to color them, and our teacher tells us all their names.
Being a zookeeper comes with a lot of responsibilities. Not only do we need to provide the basic needs, such as food, water, and protection, we also need to build relationships with the animals, which is the most important factor. The animals need to feel safe and comfortable with us. By forming these bonds, we're able to learn about the animals and our care. It helps us realize what they need and give them happiness. With confidence, I would say that animals in zoos or aquariums have a high quality of life. Definitely a higher life than what they would have in the wild.
My mommy took me to the zoo last summer, and I got to see all the animals that we learned about at school. And I even saw my favorite animal, which is a hippo.
At a very young age, I knew I wanted to become a zookeeper. Being with animals in my everyday life was always a dream of mine. It felt so right to become a zookeeper, and I thought that I was really going to make a difference in the lives of these animals. I did it for 14 years, and let me say, my job was definitely not what I expected it to be. The information that I gave the general public was based on the information that the park provided us with, and some of the information was actually proven to be false. Looking back, I'm even embarrassed to see what I said. Today, I see how little I truly know about these animals.
Animals have a high quality diet given to them. As a zookeeper, we are required to educate the population about the animals in our care. Watching television documentaries is helpful and provides information, but nothing compares to seeing the animals and watching how they act, taking in the details. It brings a greater understanding. We are always improving the conditions of the zoos. Not only do we care for the animals and provide education to others, animals in our zoos are involved in scientific research. They are studied in zoos because there are fewer factors that could interrupt a study. I'm a concerned mother about the wrongness in animal captivity. I believe we should inform our children about the false information they're receiving about animals in zoos and aquariums and stop society from viewing captivity as a social norm.
So I take my kids, often to the zoo and to the aquariums. I find they really do learn a lot when they're there. The zookeepers really go the extra mile to teaching those kids what they know. And frankly, even myself, I learn a lot when I go there. And every single time I go there, I always learn something new. It's a lot of fun for the kids. It's a lot of fun for the adults. It's fun for everyone. You really do make memories there.
Many people aren't aware of the cruelty animals receive in zoos. They are imprisoned and are miserable. They are deprived of everything that is natural and important to them. Captive animals become lonely and suffer from many conditions. Zoos cannot provide the amount of space animals have in the wild. They put on shows to show off the animals' talents as well as give us viewers entertainment. However, before the shows, animals aren't being fed, as well as after the shows if they perform it wrong. I love animals and I want to see them free, not captive behind bars.
What a lot of people don't realize is that animals are very aware of their situation and what's going on around them. Sure, they're cute and fun to look at, but we don't always take into consideration that keeping them in captivity is harming them more than it is benefiting them. A lot of animals, including elephants, chimpanzees, and dolphins, are very self-aware and very intelligent creatures. They're able to recognize themselves apart from others of their species and their environments, which makes them very sensitive creatures. Animals do have emotions, however, zoos and aquariums try to cover these changes. It's not fair for any animal, especially for these self-aware species, to have to be forced into this life, a life without control over anything, including their own feelings. We need to take their feelings into consideration before we make the decision to go support these places that are ruining their lives.
These large corporations deprive these animals from their natural lifestyle and make them adopt a more human-type lifestyle when they are dealing with human-type food, human-made environments, and human-type behaviors. This is definitely not healthy for the animals as they become depressed and very stressed because this is not the life they are meant to live. Even if they go back into the wild, they will lose their true identity and they will no longer know how to function in their natural habitat. And we all know how dangerous this can become.
Breeding captive animals can be beneficial, especially for animals who are endangered in the wild. It gives a chance for the species to renew itself, however, it is still quite controversial. A lot of these animals are being forced to breed within their own gene pools, and this can be very harmful for the species. Incest causes a lot of physical deformities in the offspring, so although the species as a whole is benefited because it's able to expand in ways that would not have been able to in the wild, it isn't fair for the animals who are born into a life full of suffering for the benefit of human entertainment.
I don't really see anything wrong with animals in zoos and aquariums. The animals really seem to enjoy themselves in their habitats. You know, when you see those whale performances, those whales really seem to have fun when they're flapping their fins. You know, they are having fun with the audience, they're having fun with those trainers, they seem to like to learn new tricks. Same things with those lions in those zoos. You know, you see them playing around with each other. These animals seem to have a lot of fun. You know, sure, they're out of their natural habitat, but I think, well, this is what the trainers told us, that they have a lot more fun in these, you know, environments because they get to interact with a lot more people, which is really nice to see.
Zoos and aquariums are very popular attractions for people of all ages, and the appeal is very understandable, especially for animal lovers. These are places that people can go to learn about a very large variety of species, and it allows for people to have a one-on-one interaction with animals that are not necessarily native to their area. But this is where the problem starts. A lot of animals we find in captivity today were born there. However, especially earlier on when these places were starting off, the animals were essentially kidnapped from their homes. You would think that being taken out of their natural habitat is stressful enough, but then they are shipped around the world to whichever park needs or wants them, and they are put into a tiny enclosure not resembling anything like their homes at all. How is that fair?
Each community of animals have different behaviors and repertoire vocalizations with no overlap. In zoos and aquariums, they create an artificial collection of their species to create families. All these animals have different languages and different genes, which may cause them to be violent with each other because they don't grow up together. They are unfamiliar to each other and yet stay imprisoned in the same small enclosures, which may be the cause of them lashing out.
Captivity is very hard on a lot of animals, both physically and mentally. Physical issues are very common in many different species, and a lot of these issues occur in a much smaller percentage of wild animals versus domesticated animals. An example would be the orcas at SeaWorld. The dorsal fin of a wild orca usually stands up straight because they're used to swimming around about hundreds of miles every day, and the constant water pressure keeps it standing straight up. But in captivity, most of the whales actually have collapsed dorsal fins, and that's caused by not swimming enough, and they don't have enough exercise, so their fins end up collapsing. And collapsed dorsal fins usually only happen in 1% of wild orcas, whereas it happens in almost 100% of captive ones.
We're not saying that the wild is a place free from problems, because it's not. Ensuring reasonable conditions in captivity is extremely challenging. Animal species have evolved over the decades, and their physical, psychological, and behavioral traits have developed in order to cope with their natural environments. Placing an animal in surroundings that are unsuitable for the species can cause stress and behavioral problems. Abnormal behavior can include stereotypic behaviors, which is repetitive behaviors that appear to have no obvious goal or function. Even if they are fed the wrong diet, they can suffer, resulting in illness or death. In some environments, it's best not to keep certain animals from the wild at all, as their needs cannot be met. These animals are facing everyday restrictions of movement issues, training that uses negative reinforcement techniques, and they are trained to perform unnatural behaviors. All of this can cause severe and lasting distress. Thinking back, I realized how truly cruel we were to these animals. Some of our animals were bred in captivity, and some for the sole purpose of exporting those offsprings to other zoos who were in need of those species. How can you look at a child being ripped away from its mother and think that it's morally acceptable? It's not. Of course, our opinion doesn't matter because we don't own these animals. but yet we're the ones who take care of these animals and grow a connection with them. All day, these animals are being observed by humans behind glass walls and steel bars. They are being enclosed in these unnatural environments with no freedom to live the life that they were born to live.
There are several moral dilemmas behind keeping animals in captivity. When looking at this subject through a utilitarian point of view, one can find that this utility outweighs the utility, making this action a wrong one. Humans can be benefited from this because they can gain knowledge about different species and it provides an interactive method of entertainment. However, we must consider the animals. Animals have feelings just like humans, and by keeping them captive for our own entertainment, we are causing them more harm than good. We are taking them out of their homes and forcing them to live by our rules and expectations. Many people believe that by keeping animals under our care, we are helping them out and we are giving them a better life than they would have in the wild. But this isn't the case. It has been proven that most animals will be emotionally and physically affected by being kept in captivity, and some lives end significantly earlier than they should. We may think that we are doing the right thing by trying to help them, but we must think of the consequences that the animals have to suffer. Loss of control, severe mental and physical illness, and sometimes even death. None of this is morally right.